The September 25th? 25th, right? Yeah, September 25th, 2019 afternoon session of the Portland City Council. Carla, please call the roll.
Hardesty,
Here.
Udaly, Fritz, Fish,
Here.
Wheeler.
Here, now we'll hear the rules of order and decorum. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Thank you. Welcome to the Portland City Council. The City Council represents all Portlanders and meets to do the city's business. The presiding officer preserves order and decorum during City Council meetings so everyone can feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe. To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communications to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions or the first readings of ordinances. Your testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. If it does not, you may be ruled out of order. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you are a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. When you have 30 seconds left, a yellow light goes on. When your time is done, a red light goes on. If you are in the audience and would like to show your support for something that is said, please feel free to do the thumbs up. If you want to express that you do not support something, please feel free to do a thumbs down. Please remain seated in council chambers unless exiting or entering. If you are filming the proceedings, please do not use bright lights or disrupt the meeting. Disruptive conduct such as shouting or interrupting testimony or council deliberations will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being ejected for the remainder of the meeting. After being ejected, a person who fails to leave the meeting is subject to arrest for trespass. Thank you for helping your fellow Portlanders feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe.
All right, very good. So just for the record, item 913 has been pulled back. That's the Southwest in Motion Plan. Commissioner Udaly had requested that be pulled back. We had two items that we did not complete this morning, 907 and 908. And Carla, we're going to read 907 and 908, and it's my understanding 918 should be read with that as well. Would you like them read separately or together?
Together, please.
If you could read all three together, then 907, 908, 918, please, Carla.
Okay. 907, accept bid of Stellar J Corporation for the Dam 1 needle valve replacement project for $1,499,000. 908, accept bid of James W. Fowler Company for the South Portland Burlingame Phase 1 sewer rehabilitation project for $2,235,000. And 918, amend ordinance to authorize a competitive solicitation contract with the lowest responsible bidder and provide payment for construction of the South Portland Burlingame Phase 1 sewer rehabilitation project number E10680 in the amount of $2,235,000.
Very good. Go ahead, Lester.
Mayor Wheeler, Commissioners, I'm Lester Spittler, the city's Chief Procurement Officer. The first item, 907, is for the Dam 1 needle valve replacement project. The Water Bureau sought an authorizing ordinance on May 1st, 2019. That ordinance was 189478. The engineer's estimate at the time was $2 million, and the level of confidence was moderate. We issued an invitation to bid on June 12th, 2019. Bids were due on July 30th, and the city received 4 responses. Stellar J Corporation was the apparent low bidder and is the recommended awardee in the amount of $1,499,000. The city's 20% aspirational goal of certified subcontractor and supplier utilization applied to this project. Stellar J committed to the following utilization. They are going to self-perform 87.4% of the work. They have identified certified subcontractors to perform 2.19%, and they've identified non-certified subcontractors to perform 10.41%. It's important to note that Stellar J is self-performing 87% of the work, so their ability to meet our 20% aspirational goal, there's a conflict there. We did review the effort made by Stellar J to engage certified subcontractors. They reached out to approximately 62 certified subs in the areas of work that they are not going to self-perform. And majority of the responses that they got back were subcontractors rejecting the opportunity. Either they were too busy or they couldn't perform the specialty nature of the work for this project. We did also talk to the city project manager and the project manager from Stellar J, and they did confirm that this work is inherently difficult to find certified subcontractors to perform. They also made a comment about our low bid solicitation method. So when we issue a low bid solicitation, the contractors obviously have to submit the lowest bid to get the contract. So when they're trying to engage subcontractors, they are also requesting bids from those subcontractors, and they are compelled to accept the lowest. So from Stellar J's perspective, it's a difficult goal to meet, knowing that we have issued a low bid solicitation and that they're compelled to accept the lowest bid from their subs as well.
Commissioner Hursti.
Thank you, Mayor. Lester, was that not clear in the RFP that they responded to, that we had this aspiration?
No, it was clear.
So, I mean, I find it kind of ironic that at the end of the day, they're like, oh, that was just too hard for us to do, so we're going to do most of the work ourselves. That's not going to ever get us to the goals that we have if that's the response, because everybody can say that's the response.
So Commissioner Fritz is not here to speak to this, Mayor, if I could.
Commissioner Fish.
There is actually, I did a Dam 1 project when I had the Water Bureau, and this is in water work, highly specialized. It's very similar to the work that's going to be done under the Willamette River with the replacement pipe. Commissioner, what we learned then and what I know now is that working in the Bull Run watershed in water, highly regulated work because of the nature of the work. And I'm going to give you a preview because you're going to have the same questions when you see some numbers on the Willamette River crossing. Because of the technology, because of the work conditions, because of the regulatory environment, because of many things, it turns out there are certain projects Water Bureau does where the contractor self-performs. Self-performing, I want to be clear here, is not because they found it inconvenient to do subcontracting. The bulk of the self-performing is that it is highly specialized and technical work that they are doing. That doesn't excuse them from trying to find other pieces that we do, like trucking and what have you. Although I will tell you, there's less of that good work in the Bull Run watershed because we don't allow people up there. We heavily regulate the Bull Run watershed. And so if I was a subcontractor, that would not be a piece of work that I would be angling for. It's hard to get to, it's heavily regulated and the like. But I just want to draw a distinction between self-performing because it is highly technical work and self-performing because you're giving a shrug to the city's aspirational goals. If it were the latter, I would be very concerned.
Yeah, and I would also, ditto to that comment, and also, self-performing the work allows your company to be more competitive with its bid because you're in direct control over that amount of labor and the work that's being performed.
I just want to reiterate, if we have a goal of 20% and you come to me with one that's 2.1%, and then you say to me the reason for that is because we're going to self-perform most of the work, I would love to hear a plan about how either the company is going to diversify and actually provide training opportunities so that there's not just a couple of companies that do the work, or whether or not we just changed our mind and decided 2% is fine, and we're just gonna accept that. I mean, I just don't think you can tell us you have this goal and then come and say 2% was the best we could do, because we're never gonna get where we wanna go if we accept that. And is this a company we've done business with in the past?
Yes.
And have they achieved the goals in the past?
I have a list of other projects that they performed, and these have been pump station work for BES and some work out at the Columbia Boulevard wastewater treatment plant. And for those 4 projects, they were low on the percentage as well.
So what are we doing to
How low?
mitigate that? Let me finish my questions, and then you can have them.
Well, he said, you asked him a question, he said low, I'd just like to know what the percentage is.
So for a project on the Columbia Boulevard wastewater treatment plant, they only obtained 3% subcontractor utilization. On the Alder pump station upgrade, they obtained about 10%. On the Airport Way pump station improvements project, they obtained less than 5%. And the Safeway pump station upgrade project, they obtained less than 5% as well.
That's very concerning. What was the company that we talked about a couple of weeks ago?
More.
More excavation.
More. I mean, with all due respect, given that those are projects that they don't have the same argument around specialized work in a restricted area, how do we explain the low numbers there? Again, this is not my item. I'm not speaking for the Water Bureau. I will tell you that they do some specialized work where there's a lot of self-performing because of the nature of the work. But how do we justify, to Commissioner Hardesty's point, dismal numbers, a pattern of dismal numbers like that on projects which I would have thought would have had lots of opportunities?
I hate to reiterate the point. I do know that pump station work, again, is highly specialized, and it's difficult to get subcontractors to perform that work. Another one of the pieces of feedback that Stellar J heard from some subcontractors that working on a long-duration city project is not very lucrative for them. And I'll just say, with a busy market, there's lots of work to go around, and if you can pick a private job or a less risky job or a less administratively burdensome job, you're likely going to do that versus taking an opportunity to work on a city project where you take on a lot of risk because of the work is so highly specialized.
So what
Commissioner Hardesty.
happens if we just reject this proposal and go back to the table and actually set some clear expectations?
That's a good question. I'd have to talk to the Water Bureau to see. I know that, I don't know, this would cause a delay in their project. If it's an in-water work window, it may need to be something that waits until next year, which would affect the budget and the estimate for the job. I think the city needs to take a little bit of ownership in this situation too. We know that these opportunities are coming in advance, and if we take a proactive approach and market these opportunities and engage firms that we want to work on our projects, we might have more success than just putting out our solicitation with our 20% aspirational program and just expecting contractors to magically be able to meet those numbers.
May I read something from the impact statement?
And then Commissioner Daly.
I'm sorry, I'll defer.
Commissioner Daly.
So, thank you, Lester. I think you do excellent work in this arena, and I know that you share, well, I assume you share our frustrations. And I can't speak for my absent colleague, but I know that Commissioner Fritz almost always has questions and concerns about low utilization rates. I asked a question last week or the week before about more. I hesitantly voted yes on a contract with very low utilization rates because I didn't understand the kind of legal liability I might have been putting the city in by rejecting a bid from the lowest responsible bidder. But I now have a different understanding in that it's not just the lowest responsible bidder, but it's the lowest responsive bidder. So if we have bidders who are not responsive either to our 20% aspirational goal of NWESB or even more of a concern for me is what I'm hearing is something I heard yesterday from out of my bureau, where we accepted a lowest responsible bidder, who doesn't want to comply with the requirements around our CEP and/or CBA agreement. That's substantively different. Today, we have an aspiration. In this situation, we have an actual policy. And so I really need your help and the help of the city attorneys to understand, what is our obligation, what is our responsibility, and what is our power in these situations, because obviously not everyone shares our aspirations.
So, Mayor, I have a proposal.
Commissioner,
Let me first read the impact statement, and again, the commissioner in charge is not here, the director's not here. We're hamstrung really in getting to the bottom of something, although you've heard different variations of this from council before, so you're not surprised. Quote, "The existing valves, which is on a dam, are antiquated, leak, and are difficult to open and close. The valves in their current configuration require staff to stand on top of them while physically opening and closing the valves. These valves and other installations have catastrophically failed while operating, causing significant life safety risks to staff. The Bureau will install 3 new fixed cones, blah, blah, blah." So here's my recommendation. I move that we set this over a week, that we ask the Bureau and the commissioner in charge to report back to council on why we should accept this and what additional steps we can take with Stellar J. But I would be loath to reject it outright without hearing from the Bureau as to whether there is a window of opportunity to do this work. And the impact statement suggests that there's some life safety issues. By setting it over a week, we still get to make the decision, but we get to bring the Bureau in to help us understand that situation. So, Mayor, that would be my.
Commissioner Fish, could I make an alternative proposal?
Yep.
Could I propose that we hold the hearing on 907, 908, 918, take public testimony, because if we're going to get it, people are going to be here right now to give that testimony. But if it's okay with Lester, we can hold off on the final vote on the 2 of these are reports, and 1 of these is an emergency ordinance. Assuming that time frame works with the Bureau, I would suggest we do everything except take the vote, and then we could reopen the conversation amongst ourselves with staff present, with the commissioner in charge present. Would that be an acceptable alternative?
So really what you're saying is on all 3 items, we set them over. We have the hearing.
Yeah,
and
but I'd
we
like
set
to
them
have
over.
I'd like to have the hearing today. I
That's
don't want to ask
acceptable to
people
me.
to come back. And Lester, would that time frame work for you? I know you've got one of these as an emergency ordinance.
Yes, I have the project manager from BES that could speak to the Burlingham, the second CPO report, 908.
Okay,
Here's
right now, I'm just
918,
narrowly
just
asking,
907.
can we
wait a
accept
week?
the proposal? I mean, we'll hear the presentation, but I want to know in terms of the timing, if it's okay if we set it over for a week.
So the question to BES is, can we hold off a week taking a vote on an emergency ordinance on the Burlingame? Does that affect your timeline?
I don't think it does, but I think the outcome of the vote might be different. The aspirational goals identified by J.W. Fowler on our project are just under 21%.
Well, the council has the right to take the vote if we want, but
Okay.
if we choose to set it over, does it create any problem?
No.
That's all we need to know for now. We'll hold the hearing and then decide.
Okay,
Mayor.
so we'll continue, but we won't take the vote today. Good.
Okay.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to be clear that for me, just telling me that you have an aspiration that's woefully underperforming is not going to gain my support. So I don't know what has to happen with the negotiating process so that when you come in front of city council, that you are as close to your aspirations as you can possibly be. Because it looks like we have a pattern of behavior that allows primary contractors to just disregard what our goals are, and that we continue to contract with them regardless of whether or not they're close to the goals. And for me, that's just not acceptable.
And that means that it's going to be, the window for passing these is going to close, because you're hearing from one colleague that she has a non-negotiable bar for reviewing this. So I think at a minimum, for me, Stellar J goes on the list of that other company that we're taking a look at to find out what's really going on. Mayor, Ascena Lawrence just reminded me, with all due respect, that the BES matter is completely distinct from this one. Now, we can hear them all together, but 908 and 9, excuse me,
7, 8, and 18.
yeah, they're completely different. They're BES items. We are above the aspirational goals, and I at least want to keep the door open for the council deciding to act on those.
Okay, so just to be clear, so I understand, are you saying
Set over 907 for a week.
set on 907, but 908 and 918, you believe you're prepared to act today?
Yes, and I think the council will, based on the numbers which we're going to be hearing from, I think the council may be inclined to act
Okay,
as well.
good. And just so people, who may be watching this are not completely confused, 907 is very specific to the Water Bureau, whereas 908 and 918 are the Bureau of Environmental Services. It's a different set of systems, but we called them together because the same staff folks in procurement are working on all of these items. Just to clarify that for people who may be confused. Commissioner Daly.
So Lester, you didn't have a chance to respond to me, and I'm happy to take this up with you outside of council setting, but I do want to ask one specific question for today. There were 4 bids received, so clearly there are other contractors that can do this work. This contractor is not responsive to our aspirational goals. Therefore, why wouldn't we look at the next lowest bid?
Wait. You may not like this answer, but they were responsive to our aspirational program. So within our admin rules for the subcontractor equity program, we define what we consider as a good faith effort. When we assessed Stellar J's engagement of certified firms, we believed that they did make a good faith effort, and that's why their bid was found to be responsive. With an aspirational program, we can only go off of a good faith effort.
And did we look at the good faith effort of the 3 other applicants?
We start with the lowest,
Okay.
assess their effort, and then if we can find them non-responsive in that regard, and then we go to the second lowest bidder and the third lowest bidder and go from there.
Well, it just seems like some kind of recalibration of the process is in order if we're ending up with, a good faith effort is a good faith effort, but we want real action.
So
Yeah.
if we want to have a required program, we would need to undertake a disparity study that would give us hard goals, and then we would be able to hold contractors accountable for meeting those goals.
That's a very polite way of
Thank
saying,
you.
under our current disparity study, it would be illegal for us to go from a aspirational goal to a fixed goal.
That's correct.
Well,
Commissioner
but
Hardesty.
if we're not getting anything in our aspirations, then I would suspect that we'd have to do something different. So, you gave, so there are at least 5 contracts with this company that never met an aspirational goal. And so there has to be a breakdown in the system that people keep getting contracts where they never, ever meet. Why do we have an aspirational goal if people don't actually have to meet it? And I'm not, you're the messenger, Lester. You know I love you. You know I know you're trying to do good work, right? But this is the bane of my existence in this building, because we say one thing and then the outcomes look different. And then we say, well, there's nothing we can do because legally we can't make people do stuff. Well, yes, we can. We got a lot of money that we give to people. So we can aspire to be better and then hold people accountable for that aspiration, I believe. But thank you. This is not personally directed at you, Lester. I know how hard you work. I know what you're trying to accomplish, but it's just unacceptable that we continue to take these really horrible outcomes and then say that's the best we can do.
So, Mayor, we're going to set 907 aside over till next week and then take up 908?
Correct.
Good.
Welcome.
Hi.
So
Welcome, Lester.
let me just add one thing to what Commissioner Hardesty said, because something is definitely out of whack. Either the aspirational goals are wrong, and we need to have an honest conversation about why that's the case, or there's something wrong on the delivery end. And it may be a combination of the two, I don't know, but there is an opportunity for a reset here. Commissioner
Yeah,
Daly.
and I mean, I think we may need more nuance in these goals, because it is true, for some of this work, there are very few contractors to choose from. It's also true, the market is still very competitive, and as Lester said, these projects aren't always the most lucrative, so I think there's some areas, we know there's plenty of contractors, but there's others where there's not, and we need to be able to account for that.
So one other thing on this, and then I'm going to go to Commissioner Hardesty on this, and then we'll move on, because it is, but it's a great conversation. If we are repeatedly either aspiring too high, and I don't think 21% strikes me as being aspiring particularly high, to be honest with you, and we're not hitting the target repeatedly, if the reasoning is what Commissioner Udaley says it is, and I believe she's probably right, just based on anecdotal information, then the right answer is really about capacity building. In these areas where we continually, repeatedly fall below our expectations in terms of women and minority contractors, then we should be using the resources we have in Prosper or elsewhere to help build up the capacity. And I realize that's a longer-term play, but ultimately, that may be where we really need to put some of the work in here. And I think we need to answer that question. Why are either the aspirations too high, the performance too low, and what are the options that are available to this council to address it over the long term? Because I fear what Commissioner Fish said is correct, that while this seems like a really arcane issue, a Dam 1 needle valve replacement, my concern is for other larger project areas like Superfund, we're going to run into the same issue. And if we're going to run into that issue, I'd like to know it now and be able to plan for it and make targeted investments and focused policies to address it. So, Commissioner Hardesty, you had a final comment.
Thank you, Mayor. My final statement was just, I know if you came to me and said I had a $1.5 million contract and I want a contract with you for $5,000, I wouldn't be that interested either in doing any paperwork to put it in with your application. So, I mean, it's about how, are we really creating opportunities? Or are we just going to people that we know are already busy just so that we can check a box and say we talked to X number of people of color, right? You said they reached out to 60 companies. I don't know what that means. Did they send an email? Did they actually have phone conversations? Did they have a meeting in their office? Because if I look at the breakdown, it just, I wouldn't bother to do the paperwork because it's not worth it for me. If you're getting 1.5 million and you're going to give me 5,000, why would I want to do that? So that's my last statement on this. We can move forward.
All right, thank you, Lester, appreciate it. 908, please.
Good afternoon, Lester.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Lester Spittler, the Chief Procurement Officer. So we have two items. We have a CPO report and an emergency ordinance. The
Is he
reason,
describing 908 and 918 together then?
correct.
Yes.
Correct, okay, thank you.
908 is the CPO report, 918 is the emergency ordinance.
All right, thank you.
When the Bureau of Environmental Services filed its original authorizing ordinance, they used a legacy template that limited their ability to execute a contract if the bid came in over the estimate. So that's one of the reasons why we're here with an emergency ordinance, is to correct that authorizing ordinance to allow for that flexibility. So that authorizing ordinance was approved on May 8th, 2019. The engineer's estimate at the time was $2,112,000, and the confidence level was high. We issued an invitation to bid on July 29th, and bids were due on August 20th. We had a mandatory pre-bid conference, and we had 11 contractors attend. 7 of those were primes, 2 of those were subcontractors, and 2 were suppliers. On August 20th, we received 4 bids. James W. Fowler is the apparent low bidder and is the recommended awardee with a bid amount of $2,235,000, which is 5.8% over the estimate. The city's 20% aspirational program applied to this solicitation, and James W. Fowler has committed to self-performing approximately 69% of the work. They've identified almost 21% of the work that they will engage certified subcontractors on, and almost 11% of the work will go to non-certified subcontractors. I have a table in the CPO report that shows each of the certified subcontractors, what their certification is, the area of work, and what their ownership is. And I also have a table in the report to council that shows the non-certified contractors and subcontractors and what they'll perform work in. So I have the project manager from BES here to answer any project-related questions, but if there are no questions, we recommend that you accept this report and authorize execution of the contract.
I move the report.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Are we prepared to take the vote today? Commissioner Fish, you're good with it, obviously?
Yep.
Very good. Any opposition?
Is this an emergency?
It's
This is a report.
So we're just accepting the report. Call the roll.
Hardesty,
I appreciate the work that's gone into this report. I feel like I'm a broken record because I keep asking the same question every time we have procurement conversations. I will not be voting for any procurement packages that come through that aren't clearly making the case for why there are no communities of color or women that are available to do the work. And it will no longer be acceptable to say to me that, you know, they did a good faith effort and they didn't find anybody. So I vote no.
Udaly,
Aye.
Fish,
Let's be clear, they've exceeded all the goals we set on this project.
Not,
21% exceeds our goals. So just to be,
21? Oh,
so just to be clear,
We're on 908.
I'm
mean, you-
sorry.
I-
Yeah, this is.
I'm not questioning your vote. I'm just saying that on this one,
That's correct.
we hit our mark, and
Okay.
so I'll vote aye.
Wheeler,
Aye, the report is adopted to 9:18. So 9:18, have you completed your presentation?
we've completed.
Then we need to take
Thank
public testimony if there is any on 9:18. It's an
I-
ordinance.
sorry, don't think Maggie came back.
She did not come back. Last chance. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Hardesty,
No.
This is an emergency.
On 918?
9:18.
If you
Yeah.
vote no, it forces us to come back next week, wait an extra month. And we have met Lester's already reported that we exceeded the aspirational goals.
Correct.
There's no opposition, there's no complaint filed to the, so a no vote means that we defeat the emergency clause.
For my esteemed colleagues, I will be happy to change my vote on this particular piece of legislation today, because, as you said, we have exceeded the goals on this. However, I won't be forced to vote for something just because you need an emergency. But today, I will make an exception, and I will change my vote to vote aye for this particular piece of legislation. Aye.
Udaly,
Aye.
Fish,
Thank you, colleague. Aye.
Wheeler,
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. We will now move to, we cannot go to the 3:30 time certain yet, so we'll move into the regular agenda. 915, please.
915, extend subrecipient contract with Metropolitan Public Defenders by $100,000 in recreational cannabis tax funding to support the expungement pilot program to June 30, 2020.
Colleagues, nationally, as many as 100 million, or nearly one-third of the entire United States population, have criminal records. We know that criminal background checks are used by employers, landlords, colleges, and others to make important decisions. This means anyone with a criminal record can potentially face barriers to accessing jobs, housing, educational opportunity, and other important elements. Barriers created by having a criminal record disproportionately impact people of color. In line with this reality, people of color and people in recovery are the two most impacted groups prior to the legalization of cannabis. Since expungement, which is the sealing of criminal records, can reduce the barriers for impacted individuals and families, the City Council directed the Portland Housing Bureau to develop an expungement pilot program in May of 2019. Following this directive, the Portland Housing Bureau is contracted with the Metropolitan Public Defender to run an expungement pilot program. The project is funded through the city general funds for $50,000. The City Council was able to make a special allocation for expungement services from the Cannabis Recreational Tax Resources. We're going to start by watching a video created by my staff videographer on the life-changing impact that expungement can have. And here comes Adam in person.
I was going through a hard time growing up, so I had a lot of anger and hurt built up. A friend asked me if I wanted to go to a party, and a situation happened where she was supposed to be fighting someone and she had a knife. And I had took the knife from her. I tried walking away. I tried getting in a car. It was like 15 to 20 people following me, jumping on the car. I ended up being at this store, and my back ended up being against the wall of the building next door to the store. And I had blacked out, and I assaulted the closest person to me with the knife. I was sentenced to 5 years of attempt of assault too. I went to the boot camp program, and I did 1 month shy from 2 years. It was so discouraging. I cried all the time and just was trying everything possible to get past it. Actually getting a job, a good paying job, it's hard with a criminal background. They see me bouncing around job to job. There was no serious stability for us.
If you have a felony on your record, it is extremely impactful when it comes to getting a job or getting an apartment. An expungement is essentially the sealing of someone's criminal record. That case comes off of our court system completely, so it's effectively erased. And then if someone were to run a background check on that person, they wouldn't be able to find that case anymore. For an attorney who is trained on expungements, they could do an analysis within a few minutes. The way that the expungement statute works, if you have one conviction, you have to wait 3 years until you can expunge it. If you have more than one conviction in the last 10 years, you have to wait until that conviction is 10 years old. While you're waiting, once you're done with probation, and if you've successfully completed it, you can ask the court to reduce that felony to a misdemeanor. Partnered on doing 6 expungement clinics. We will partner with various organizations throughout the city to do these clinics. Able to do their expungement analysis and then show up the day of and be able to essentially expunge people's records that day and then have them file in court, and then PHB will follow up with them some months later and find out, is this affecting you in a positive way, particularly around housing.
It was now or never because I needed to stay focused on what's best for myself and my children. Now I have my record expunged. I have a nice home for my children. I actually have a good paying job now.
I want someone to be able to move forward and achieve whatever goal they have for themselves, whatever their dream is for themselves, and be able to re-enter their community fully.
I even started crying when I got my record expunged because it felt so good to just feel like, okay, now that is finally behind me.
It'd be great to see the program expand throughout the city, reach as many people as possible. It definitely seems, at least from our experience in the office, that there's a real need for this service.
It doesn't take very long to pick up the phone and call to see if your record's eligible to be expunged. It only takes a couple of seconds. It was so much weight lifted off my shoulders. I felt like I can fly.
Very good, thank you. And I believe I'm turning this over to Uma Krishnan at this point from the Portland Housing Bureau. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. For the record, I'm Uma Krishnan, staff lead for the expungement pilot. And I have here with me Sonia Stefani. She's the staff lead from MPD. And Andreas Oswald, if you have questions, how the pilot fits in with the larger policy goals of the PHP. So essentially, we are here to answer your questions around the pilot, and if you have any questions around the connections between that pilot, which is ongoing, and its nexus to today's request, which is to request the council to authorize the additional 100,000 funding.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you so much. Metropolitan Public Defenders is who would be getting the $100,000. I try not to use acronyms because A, the public doesn't know what we're talking about, and B, it makes it clearer to the public what we're attempting to do. I am curious as to the types of expungements that Metropolitan Public Defenders has done so far with the pilot project dollars. Because again, this fund comes from a marijuana tax. I guess we call it cannabis tax around here because some people get a little freaked out when you call it marijuana, but be that as it may, can you give me some information about just who has had their records expunged, and are there community members that you want to highlight, types of community members who are being helped by these resources?
So I'm going to let Sonia answer your specific question, but I do want to add here that the ongoing pilot, which was just about expungement, with this additional cannabis money, because of the objectives tied to the cannabis, we have added scope that the expungement be provided in locations or agencies which specifically serve people of color and people in recovery, so that the objective of the funding is kept in mind.
Thank you.
So for the record, my name is Sonia Good-Stefani, and I'm a staff attorney at the Community Law Division, which is a division within the Metropolitan Public Defender's Office. So with the original general funds, the first $50,000, we held 6 clinics. The clinics were held at Street Roots, which is an organization, you probably know, they sell the newspapers downtown. We held 3 clinics at libraries, so we held it at the Midland Library, the Gresham Library, and the Rockwood Library. We held 1 clinic at Healthy Birth Initiatives, which is a county organization actually designed to provide African-American mothers and their families with supportive services during pregnancy and when they have a newborn. And then the last clinic was at Impact Northwest out by their shelter. The general pilot didn't necessarily focus on any specific population besides folks who were in poverty. We have a requirement that you have to be below 80% medium income level in order to participate in the expungement clinic for those. We met with about the contract was designed so that we had to screen at least 100 people, and we screened about 175 with those 6 clinics. Going forward, again, as Uma said, we are focusing on site locations that will be specific for people of color and women in particular. So we have a clinic actually scheduled for 2 days from now, on Friday, at Project Nurture, which is a center for new moms who have been experiencing addiction. As far as your question goes as to what has been expunged in particular, so we expunge everything that can be expunged under the law. So that includes, the expungement statute is specific. It's most Class C felonies and misdemeanors, and everything marijuana related that the legislature has approved expungement. So anything marijuana related, except for there are 5 marijuana, cannabis-related convictions.
See, you did it
I
too.
know, right? Cannabis-related convictions that are ineligible for expungement, so we can't expunge those, but otherwise, we expunge everything else. We're really excited because starting in January, there are some new laws that got passed by the legislature that will allow us to expunge cannabis-related convictions outside of the regular expungement statute. So as my colleague in the video said, you have to wait a certain amount of time, regardless of what your convictions or arrests were. But the new laws coming into effect will allow us to essentially pluck some of the marijuana convictions out and expunge those convictions.
So I appreciate that explanation, and I just will share my concern. We know that the people that were most impacted by poor cannabis law were African American. And so when we say people of color, it's a very generic term, right? But if we look at, based on conviction rates of marijuana across the board, there's no surprise as who's been most impacted. So what would your strategy be to ensure that, based on conviction rates, that your demographics would reflect your help of the people who have been most impacted by poor cannabis public policy?
I can attempt to answer your question. Our strategy is that the model, the way the pilot works, is to kind of take, for short of a better phrase, it's like taking expungement services on the road. So, and given how we have seen things work in the past, we are hoping to partner with culturally specific organization. In this case, the agencies that provide specific services to African American population, and we could hold a clinic there. So I think that's the strength of the pilot. We are planning on holding 8 separate
Workshops
legal
or-
workshops,
right.
and we will make sure that it perhaps we can make sure that it serves African American people who have been disproportionately impacted.
Thank you.
Commissioner Daly.
I'm going to sound like a total nerd here,
It's okay.
but Commissioner Hardesty brought up a good point. I also referred to it as marijuana when I first got here, and then the term was switched to cannabis, and I didn't understand why. And but I now know, and I can share with you, it's the proper term. It's the more accurate term, and the history of the word marijuana is related to the Federal Bureau of Narcotics making it illegal in the 30s and calling it something other than cannabis or hemp, which were commonly understood terms, and may have garnered more opposition if they tried to make cannabis and hemp illegal. And it was also, there was also a racist agenda, mostly towards Mexican Americans at that time. So I love to nerd out on words.
Yes, as do I sometimes. Thank you. I appreciate that.
But it is awkward, and I still
I will always
mix
call it
the two.
marijuana, so, just for public policy purposes, I use the term cannabis, but hey.
As the commissioner in charge of the cannabis office, I grant you that
The authority and the
authority.
right.
Yeah. We know what you're talking about.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your work, and I look forward to seeing the results of the additional resources that you've received.
Thank you.
So we're not taking a vote, we're just moving on?
We'll
or-
take public testimony, but I want to make sure that, are you completed with your presentation? Is there more you'd like to say?
No, we are. Just thank you so much for this additional
Well,
authorization.
we appreciate your leadership on this. Thank you, and your partnership's very important, obviously.
Before they
Do you wanna-
leave,
Sorry, I was just gonna ask the gentleman if he wanted to introduce himself. I feel like we just brought you up here to look good.
I'm just here to answer questions. My name is Andres Oswald from the Portland Housing Bureau. I think Uma covered everything very well. In the time since the Bureau has been allocated funding from the Cannabis Fund, the Housing Bureau has been taking time to recalibrate the program and made some contract amendments that you can see in Exhibit A on how we'll be working with the Office of Civic Life and the Cannabis Grant Fund to make sure we're targeting the outreach and program design to reach the population these funds are intended to serve.
Thank you very much.
Great, Commissioner Daly.
I just want to give what would have been my closing remarks since we have
People
the
here.
speakers here today. First, I want to thank everyone for the beautiful video and just say that I'm really pleased and supportive of seeing the cannabis tax dollars used towards expungement, which I consider to be one of the most vital services that we can provide. I also want to take a moment to thank our state legislators for the steps they took in the last session to reduce the barriers to expungement. But I'm going to go on record for the umpteenth time, I think, to say that I still don't think it's fair that the burden is on the individual and that the state should adopt an automatic system for record clearing, but that is a conversation for another day. Today, I just want to reaffirm how important it is that we provide pathways for formerly incarcerated people to reintegrate into our communities. I don't understand the punitive attitudes towards people who have paid their dues, and I feel like if people understood that they're not just punishing that individual, but punishing their families, punishing their communities, and ultimately punishing our whole society, because we are doing harm to everyone when we don't support people reentering community. It's especially true in housing, which continues to be a major barrier, even when criminal record is not necessarily an indicator for successful tenancy. The health and safety of our communities depends on our commitment to this work, and I just want to thank you all and thank the mayor for supporting it.
Very good. Public testimony.
No one else signed up.
Very good. Then before we pull away, Adam is our amazing video director, videographer. Thanks, Adam, for your hard work on that. Thanks to all of you for the great partnership. And I'll just say this, I'll say it again when we actually take the final vote, that as the Housing Commissioner, I'll make sure that we continue to work diligently on this, that we continue to make the partnership effective. We will report back to the City Council on what the progress is of the expungement pilot, and also bring back plans for potential expansion, assuming we like the results that we see out in the community. So thank you for that. This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is 916, Bureau of Transportation.
Authorize a construction contract with Cascade Bridge LLC in the estimated amount of up to $1 million for the stabilization and repair of the North Going Street Bridge under the auspices of a declaration of an emergency per ORS 279C.335 competitive bidding exceptions.
Commissioner Daly.
Thank you, Mayor. On Sunday, September 8th, a Union Pacific train collided with and caused significant damage to Peabot's North Going Street Bridge. Coincidentally, I was in Vancouver, BC at the Railvolution conference. I hate to think this is a bad omen. North Going Street Bridge is the only connection to and from Swan Island. The 6-lane bridge is currently limited to 1 lane in each direction due to the extent of the damage. PBOT engineering staff is working around the clock to assess the damage and move forward with repairs. This bridge is a critical lifeline for shipping, manufacturing, jobs, and local community interests on Swan Island, who are strongly in support of expedited action to make the necessary repairs. Ooh, I don't get to do this every day. Therefore, I have declared an emergency exception to the competitive bidding process so repairs can occur as soon as possible. Here to provide more details and answer any questions is Cameron Glasgow, Engineering Supervisor with PBOT.
Thank you, Commissioner Udaly.
And
Steve-
somebody
My
else.
name is
Steve Townsend, I'm Chief Engineer for Transportation, and we actually have been able to get a second lane open into Swan Island, and it's 1 lane out, but normally there are 3 lanes in and out. I'm just here to help Cameron out with any questions.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Cameron Glasgow, the Bureau of Transportation's Engineering Supervisor for Bridges and Structures. I'll be happy to take you through what we've been experiencing out there after the collision. That's the scene as it looked when we first arrived. This was the morning of September 7th when we got the call about a train colliding with our bridge, what we know is Bridge B, number 12. And we knew it was the old part of the bridge that was hit, which was concerning, and I'll explain that in a moment. So when we arrived, due to the damage that we saw, we had to close all travel lanes on the bridge, especially during the removal of the train that was resting on the bridge. And then traffic was rerouted onto River Road at the time. And we wanted to follow up with another inspection before we opened up travel lanes on the bridge, so we mobilized high lift inspection equipment to get to the tops of the column to further evaluate the damage. We also brought on board a consultant that day to assist us with the evaluation, and they had some technology that's not available to us that we needed. At that point, on Sunday, we were able to get up to do our inspection of the columns and the deck and determine that it was safe to open 2 lanes of travel across the bridge, 1 inbound and 1 outbound. And the reason why we were able to do that, even though the bridge did sustain significant damage, it's really 3 bridges built at 3 separate times. The middle structure was built in 1930, and 2 adjacent parallel structures were built in 1976. And the bridges are somewhat independent, but they were tied together in 2010 by a seismic retrofit that we did, which actually I think benefited the bridge in this case to resist the impact, but does make repairs a little more challenging because the bridges do share loads from the heavy vehicles. Here's another view looking like you're standing on the ground looking down the line of the bridge, and that shows the 2 lanes on the left side of the structure, the northernmost lanes that were opened up.
How many more bridges could we add?
Yeah, we could probably fit another 2 in there. You
Okay,
know?
good to know.
Yeah, it's got quite a history. There's been a lot of modifications over time on this one. In the damage columns, you can see right with the red arrows, and the right column of the 1930 bridge sustained the most damage. Here's some photos that we took up on the lift. The photo on the left shows damage all the way up the column where the beams frame in, and that was due to the vertical bars actually buckling and popping the concrete out. And we even noticed damage up in the top of the deck or on the surface that the vehicles drive. And the photo on the right is near the impact zone, but that crack is showing it's over 3/4 of an inch, and there's several of those. So the following week, we used ground penetrating radar from the consultant to evaluate the bridge deck. We reached out to a contractor to get them on board to know what materials they had available for us to start our designs for the repair and shoring of the bridge, and had them out on site by the 10th to take a look. We started demolishing the damaged portions of the bridge deck and repairing that in an effort to attempt to open an additional lane of traffic. And we got on this right away because there's 35,000 vehicles per day that cross this bridge and a lot of heavy freight that relies on it. We also arranged a time to closed the railroad for foundation excavation to determine the damage in the foundation below ground. And after that, we were able to open a third travel lane. And there's just some of the work we've done so far.
Oh, wow.
And this is the current configuration of the travel lanes that are open. Those 2 lanes on the north side are westbound onto the island, and they're open 24 hours. And the eastbound, the only lane off the island, is now the southernmost lane.
And colleagues, I just want to underscore part of the urgency, besides this being such a huge center of jobs, is that UPS and FedEx are both sited on Swan Island, and we are quickly rolling into the holiday season. So this could actually be like economically disastrous for businesses across the city if we don't act really quickly.
I would like this presentation to include some of the commentary that was made the other day. We didn't damage this bridge. This bridge was damaged by the railroad, and it was an oil train. We've discussed in here previously what this could have been versus what it actually was. How responsive has the railroad been? First of all, who is the railroad?
The rail is Union Pacific.
And how responsive have they been?
Initially, they were very responsive in allowing us to access the site to evaluate the damage. And they've connected us with their home office in Omaha in an effort to review our repair and concepts. Since they agree in principle, I think, to where we're headed, the issue that we're running into with them is the amount of time they're going to allow us to be on site for them to stop or halt their operations so we can perform the work, and we're negotiating that with them right now.
And so why is this a negotiation? I mean, there's a life safety issue here.
Huge
The
economic
photos speak for themselves.
impact,
The
yeah.
commissioner in charge is in agreement. What's to negotiate? We need time to be able to shore up and repair these bridges that are a vital piece of infrastructure for Swan Island, and a lot of people cross it every day. So
And
why is it
could-
a negotiation?
So I
Crush their
believe we'll-
trains and
Pardon me?
it could crush their trains and keep them from moving cars through the city. It's, you know, they're not really doing us a favor, but
So part of it is that it's their underlying property, so they're the property owner in principle.
And so I asked you a question the other day, and you may not have the answer to that question, which is, what are our rights? You know, I know as mayor, I have certain rights around declaring emergencies when there is a life safety risk that
don't-
may supersede other potential existing arrangements. Do we have any leverage here?
I believe the attorneys are looking into that
Okay.
right now. I don't have the answer.
Yeah, so we got the right-of-way reports from our right-of-way group, and they've been sent over to Ken McGarr and Scott Modi, who are taking a look at that.
So they maintain the tracks as well. So it may be that the train was doing what the train was supposed to be doing, the engineer, and by the way, I'm told nobody on the train was injured, which is a
Correct.
good thing. We're glad to hear that. But it may be that the tracks themselves failed or the substructure under the tracks failed. That is their responsibility to maintain that, is it not? So there should be no disagreement about who's going to pay for the repairs.
Correct.
Have they agreed to that?
With this, when we've talked to them, they've said that they're going to make this their insurance claim, but with this, they haven't raised any concerns about or fighting. I mean, I think it's one of those things, they realize they damaged the bridge, they're going to pay to fix it.
Okay.
And I think
Commissioner
going
Hurst?
back to kind of the negotiation, it's one of those things of trying to come up with a reasonable solution for both of us so that we're able to get the bridge done in, you know, the right time frame to get things
Okay,
done.
well,
but
I
also
just
negotiate.
want to put on the record
Yeah,
here,
no, I
they
understand.
damaged this bridge. This is their responsibility, and it is my expectation that they will work with us and provide whatever flexibility they can to ensure that we're able to do this work quickly.
And if we can't get that, we will definitely be asking for assistance.
And I'm putting that on the record that I will use whatever options are available to me as mayor, and I'm sure that I speak for this council when I say that. Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you. On the same note, I think the mayor was looking over my shoulder, reading my questions on my little notepad here, because he asked most of my questions. The only one he didn't ask that I know was next had he not saw me trying to get in, is the question of how soon are they going to reimburse us for the cost of the repair of this bridge?
So that's something we don't have an answer to. I'll tell you how it works on our federal projects, and actually, maybe we have, Randy, you want to come up here?
So we're getting ready to spend $1 million with the hope that the people who actually damaged the bridge are going to give it back?
So risk management
your name
is
in the record, please.
handling the.
What's your name?
Put your name in the
I'm sorry, Randy Stenquist, Liability Claims Manager of Risk Management.
Thank you.
So my office has been working with the railroad beginning a week after the incident. We put out a couple of communications to them via email to their local representative about our intentions. I can share with you the statement that I provided PBOT's Public Information Officer because citizens were asking questions not unlike what you all are asking. And the statement was, risk management will seek to recover from Union Pacific and any other responsible parties all reasonable and necessary costs associated with the damage to the city's transportation infrastructure on September 7th, 2019, as well as other costs related to the incident and the resulting disruptions. So that has been our intention. That remains our intention. The reality of how the subrogation collection process works is that the work has to be completed. It's essentially a reimbursement that we would be seeking from them. And we are doing everything we can to move through the process of having a dialogue with them. On the engineering front, things seem to be going very well to move the repairs along. On the financial side, they are less communicative. That's not a surprise to any of us who have worked with the railroads over the years, but we have sent formal notification to the railroad, both to their headquarters in Omaha, as well as to the local risk management representative here in town. And everyone is aware that we are going to be seeking recovery of our damages. That would happen at the end of the process. Once all of the bills have been tallied up, risk management will be putting together a demand package that we would submit formally to the railroad.
And just one last question. In your experience, and it sounds like you've been doing this for a little while, is there normally a smooth process, or is this a process that will require us to use political muscle, either from a congressional delegation or others who can assure that we get reimbursed?
Are you referring to specifically with a relationship with the railroad?
Yes.
Historically, I've been here 18 years doing this work, and I've had a number of railroad claims in that time. If I had to characterize the relationship, it is challenging, and it has always been, and we recognize that going in. And I think, that's just how they portray themselves. And it's a huge conglomerate, and it's very bureaucratic, not unlike the city of Portland. But we all have a process in place to, seek recovery of monies that we believe are owed to us. And there's clearly a legal liability on their piece.
I just
Commissioner
wanna-
Daly, then, I'm sorry, go ahead, finish.
Yeah, let me
and
just
then
finish. I
Daly.
just want to thank Commissioner Daly because this is the very first time in my experience here that this is a real emergency. We're talking about people's lives potentially being lost if we don't do this repair in a timely manner. And so it's though I don't like emergencies, I am very appreciative to know that we have a mechanism in place when there's a real emergency that we can step up and actually do what needs to be done and then put pressure on at the back end. So thank you.
Commissioner Daly?
Because we have other train-related concerns in the city, I just wanted to explicitly say on the record, the reason we're having this kind of back and forth and challenges with this project is that this property is outside of our jurisdiction. It is under the US DOT and federal railroad, or it's under federal railroad transportation under US DOT, correct? And there are a number of federal laws that preempt state and local ability to control what happens on that property. And it's obviously really problematic when a train cuts through a city and potentially impacts lives and jobs. So thanks for your hard work on this. I'm not an engineer, but those photos were terrifying to me, and I can't believe it's only going to cost $1 million.
Commissioner Fish?
Yeah.
Randy, has the railroad denied liability?
For this incident?
Yes.
They have been silent on liability.
They've neither accepted nor denied liability?
Correct, sir.
Do we have a working hypothesis as to how this happened?
According to media reports, the railroad acknowledged that it was a broken rail that led to the derailment. So
So that sounds like negligence?
it sounds like what?
That sounds like common law negligence.
One could make
They
that
are
argument.
responsible for maintaining the tracks in a
Right.
certain order, and if it
It's
is
their
foreseeable
equipment.
that if there's a broken track, there would be a derailment and it could damage other property.
Correct.
Do we have confidence this will not happen again at the same location?
That I can't speak to. I'll defer to PBOT and their current relationship with the railroad.
Yeah, I don't think we could make a comment on that. It'd be speculative at this point.
Well, it could be less than speculative if the railroad makes an affirmative commitment to do an analysis to make sure that this doesn't happen again, or that the equipment is not in substandard condition or whatever. So are we pursuing that?
We hadn't been. I mean, it's been our assumption that the railroad's going to make every effort, not only in this case, but in every location, to make sure that their tracks are, because it's in their own best interest to make sure they have things fully well maintained, but that's not something we'd ask the railroad.
Okay, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Any further questions? Is there public testimony on this item, Carla?
No one signed up.
Very good. Sort of hate to take the vote without Commissioner
Well, we
Curtis.
need her because it's an emergency. Do we need 4?
Mustafa's on it.
Yes, we do.
Mayor, why don't we just take up 917, and when she arrives, we can take the vote.
Do you mind starting 917, Commissioner?
Oh, that is fine with me.
Very good, 917. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Great presentation. Thank you. And thanks to the good work of PBOT and Procurement and Legal on this.
917, authorize an intergovernmental agreement with Portland State University to conduct disability engagement and equity research not to exceed $75,000.
Very good. And I'll turn this over to Commissioner Udaley in a moment, but just sort of a administrative heads up. At some point, I'll do a brief interruption just so we can close out the prior item with a vote. Commissioner Udaley.
Thank you, Mayor. Colleagues, this ordinance will allow us to release funds for an IGA with Portland State University to conduct disability engagement and equity research. The results of this research will be used to inform Civic Life's efforts and will be shared with citywide partners. Joanne Johnson from the Disability Program Coordinator in Civic Life, and Nico Serra and Leila Haile from Real Choice Initiative are here as for a brief presentation.
Yes.
Welcome, and please state your, everyone please state your name for the record.
Of course. Good afternoon, Commissioners and Mayor. I'm Joanne Johnson, Disability Program Coordinator with the Office of Community and Civic Life. Thank you for your ongoing support in having us here today. I'm here along with Nico Serra and Leila Hale from Real Choice Initiative to ask you to authorize the intergovernmental agreement with Portland State University so we can begin work on the disability engagement and equity study. We'll share an overview of the study and why it's so important for our city and communities, as well as how we got to this point and what our next steps are. Do you need to pause?
No, we'll wait till you finish your presentation.
The Disability Data Project was funded in fiscal year 2017-2018 in the amount of $55,000 to collect data on Portland's diverse disability communities. Civic Life added $20,000 to the agreement through the fiscal year 18-19 spring bump from disability program funds to support a more meaningful study. The Disability Engagement and Equity Study will provide information that supports the city's efforts to understand how people access civic engagement and other city services and identify how diverse disabled Portlanders want to engage. It will also inform civic life program development and citywide equity efforts. Layla Hale and Nico Sarah will share more about the study design soon. I want to take a moment to underscore the deep need for this work. Data on Portlanders with disabilities, especially as it relates to civic engagement and experiences accessing city services, is extremely limited. Moreover, the data that does exist at county, state, and federal levels is outdated or cannot be disaggregated by disability, race, gender, etc. While the 2019 Portland Community Insights Survey is a great start, we need a more specific disability-focused effort to understand how diverse disabled Portlanders do and want to engage with the city and what's getting in the way. We continue to need a more complete picture of how Portlanders with disabilities from many communities experience city engagement and city services. As you can see in front of you, community and government partners have already worked incredibly hard to get us to this point. In the summer of 2018, staff met with data analysts and impacted community members. The RFP was open in fall 2018, with the first deadline falling just before Thanksgiving. The deadline was extended to get more applicants. The RFP was closed in winter 2018, and our selection process left us with 2 fantastic applicants with very complementary and equally necessary skill sets. So we asked them to collaborate. In spring of 2019, a draft collaborative contract was created and went through legal review. And this summer, we sent the contract to Portland State University for review and negotiation. And now we're here, ready for your authorization to begin work. Please allow me to introduce the teams who will be working on this study. I would like to share a statement from Dr. Masami Nishashiba, and then I will hand it off to Nico Sarah and Layla Hale to introduce themselves and share more about their team. Dr. Masami Nishashiba is a professor and department chair of the Department of Public Administration, Hatfield School of Government, Portland State University. She couldn't be here today, but wanted to share this with you. I'm excited to be part of this important project, working in collaboration with the Office of Community and Civic Life and the team from Real Choice Initiative. Real Choice and Portland State University collaboratively discussed the approach to this study. While there are a variety of ways to collect information about and from disability communities, we decided to focus our effort on using a standardized online questionnaire. We are aware, however, that just sending online surveys from an electronic form will not reach the broader disability community. Therefore, we will employ multiple modalities in administering this survey. Once the survey data is collected, we will organize a town hall-style information sharing session. Portland State University will be providing expertise in research methods, survey software resources, and we will be engaging students and providing students opportunities to learn more about the disability communities and the research approach. I would now like to invite Nico Sarah from Real Choice Initiative to present their roles and their team members.
Thanks.
Of course.
Thanks, Joanne. Hi, my name is Nico Sarah. I'm a white passing mixed race queer and transgender person with disabilities, and I use they pronouns. As Joanne stated, I'm with Real Choice Initiative. Alan Hines, our director and the project manager, couldn't be here today, and we prepared a statement for y'all. Our team of organizers and service providers have deep and lasting connections in the disability community. Together, we have a broad reach and can engage underrepresented populations such as people of color, queer and transgender people, people living in group settings, and those struggling to survive out on the streets. Through the connections we developed while in the field, we've learned that many disabled people are eager to have comprehensive data that will better inform the decisions of local policymakers and ultimately improve our lives. In the past, many researchers studying the disability community have turned to non-probability sampling, often in the form of focus groups and convenience samples. Focus groups often require a community presence as someone to identify, a level of health to be present and participating for an extended period of time, easily remedied access needs, and transportation. The result is a small pool of relatively privileged people representing a diverse and expansive disability community to the exclusion of the most oppressed among us. Our team hypothesizes that the fulfillment of basic needs is a predictor of individuals' civic engagement. That is, when people with disabilities fare well in addressing social determinants of health, they have a greater capacity to engage with the policies that affect their lives. Our study is designed to gather demographic information, data on 6 categories of basic needs, respondents' current level of civic engagement, and the recommendations to better support them to participate in the political process. We hope to survey at least 350 to 450 people, and we believe that engaging a diverse group of people with disabilities is key for this study and beyond. And I will pass it on to Layla.
I'll echo everything else that my colleagues here said. It was all very well put. Also, my name is Layla Hale, for the record. I'm most passionate about this project because we know that in government, if there's no data, then there's no problem. And we know that with no data collection, we don't exist. And that is a form of very quiet bureaucratic eugenics that we want to push against. And also pushing the fact that we are the only community that anyone can become a part of at any moment. So I feel like we're also the most important that folks in power need to pay attention to when we're talking about allocating resources and creating a sustainable city that serves folks in the long term. I feel like that's all I have to say.
Cool. Great.
That this work is really important, and if we're thinking of truly serving everyone who's involved in most of the systems that serve our people, we need to look at the folks who are most oppressed and who are at the forefront of that. We're basically your canary in the coal mine when it comes to evaluating how our systems are serving the greater public. Thank you.
Thank you.
As you can see, this process and this study are rooted in collaborations between governments and communities. This is no less true within the city of Portland and our partners in the county and community. This study was funded in response to communities and government partners' calls for this kind of data. As we've been moving through this process to begin work on the study and shared our anticipation, we've heard nothing but enthusiastic support from our colleagues in the Office of Equity and Human Rights, as well as other bureaus like the Portland Bureau of Transportation, the Portland Housing Bureau, Friends at Multnomah County, and respected community leaders within disability community organizations. There's a lot of excitement for the many ways this data can support engagement and equity efforts across the city and in our communities. Because the data from this study will be a leap forward in informing our race and disability equity efforts in the city, we want to underscore that the Office of Equity and Human Rights has long recognized the need for this kind of data. They've been deeply supportive of the project and will be consulted throughout our data collection efforts. We plan to share our results with the Office of Equity and Human Rights and all other bureaus and partners to support our collective equity work. I'd like to read a statement from Nicole Sharon, ADA Title II and Disability Equity Manager with the Office of Equity and Human Rights, who couldn't be here today but wanted to share her thoughts. Distinguished council members, I'm sorry I couldn't be here today, but I wanted to share my thoughts all the same. When the Coalition for Communities of Color put their report on the state of Black Portland, I was in awe. It made such a statement and impact to see in such clear numbers the inequity faced by people of color living in Portland. I've known for a long time that if we were able to do such a report in regards to people with disabilities living in Portland, we would see similar numbers. Unemployment, access to housing, and living on a fixed low income would paint a dire picture. But we don't have these numbers, and we don't get much assistance from the federal government in collecting that information either. The Census Bureau only collects data on disability through the American Community Survey, ACS, beginning in 1999, with a heavy focus on social services, and the Survey of Income and Program Participation, SIPP, starting in 2014. The current data available around disability statistics is further compromised by the social stigmas associated with identifying as a person with a disability. Older Americans, for example, are 35% more likely to experience a disability over the age of 65, and they rarely identify themselves as having a disability. Without good data, we cannot draw a clear picture of the gaps and inequities people are facing. These are only a few reasons why Joanne's project is so important. I wanted to let you know how excited and supportive of this I am. OEHR will be available to Joanne and Civic Life to make sure this process is a success. I truly believe Joanne's work will set a model and direction other cities will hopefully follow. Nicole, ADA Title II and Disability Equity Manager.
Commissioner Hardesty, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, were
Yeah,
you
go-
done?
Not quite.
Okay, sorry.
Our next step is getting to work, finalizing the study design and data collection timeline, officially kicking off engagement with city and community partners, and formally reaching out to Portlanders so they know how to get involved. We'll be back here in May to share what we've learned and how it will inform our work going forward. And we're looking forward to it already. I'm happy to respond to any questions you might have now. Thank you for your time and kind attention. We urge you to approve this IGA so we can get to work.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for your compelling testimony. Let me just say, we need you. We need you to conduct this survey. We need you to get this information incorporated into the city's work. And I am thrilled, and I am channeling my colleague, Commissioner Fritz, who isn't here today, but I know this is near and dear to her heart. So I just want you to know that I'm giddy, and I know she's giddy. She can't say it on the record, but I'll say it for her, that we're moving this process forward. It's taken a long, long time, but hopefully we're doing it in a very thoughtful way so that the information we get will be useful for the work that we have ahead. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I want to add my thanks. And Joanne, you probably said this, could you tell me what the next step is? Do you have a time frame for coming back to the city council with your learning?
We'll be back in May.
In May, thank you.
Yes.
In that earlier or later, do we have a date set yet?
Mid-May.
Okay, good.
And I just want to acknowledge our timeline has changed several times just because of the bureaucracies of getting all of the pieces done so that we could start working.
Good. I just want to make sure I'm here because
Yeah.
I'm really excited about this and I look forward to the results. Thank you.
Yes.
We need
Yes.
Commissioner Fish.
And this is an
Commissioner Daly.
emergency, so we need to
we
go
have two
grab.
emergencies.
We need him for both, in fact.
Is Mustafa?
I could go grab them, then I'd be
No,
gone.
because I know what's going to happen. Don't you dare. Don't you dare.
It's hurting cats.
We've been here before, haven't we?
Indeed, we have.
Commissioner Fish, you're wanted in chambers.
I'm sure that's him now.
I don't know how he gets through that
No.
exit door, no.
Okay. Then he'll be back. Any other questions for us? Well, thank you very much. We're going to vote on this. We just
Yeah,
have
the good news is we can stall because we need to take testimony. Carla, was there any public testimony on 917?
No one signed up.
Okay.
Of course not.
I can share some.
Commissioner Udaley,
Reflections
please.
and appreciations. I want to thank Nicole Sharon, of course, and thank Joanne especially for advancing this item. I want to kind of expand on something that Layla said, which is that people with disabilities are the largest minority group in this country. And it is true that anyone can join at any moment, unlike most other minority groups, despite what some people might think. Some people have visible disabilities, some people have invisible disabilities, but the lack of data that we have, the lack of access, inclusion, and opportunity of people with various types of disabilities does lead to this disappearing, where people think they don't exist, therefore there's no need or demand. And it's just this vicious cycle of people not being served and not being recognized. So I'm very, very excited about this study. It's a perfect example of a significant community in our city that is underrepresented and underserved, and for a variety of reasons, may be unable to engage in the very prescribed ways that we have historically and currently allowed people to engage. And the really good news is when we center disability and serve people with disabilities, it benefits everyone. So now we can take the vote.
Thank you.
Very good. So any further business on number 917? Seeing none, please call the roll, Carla.
Hardesty,
Great work. I look forward to you coming back in May of next year and telling us what the results are and helping us figure out a way to make sure that that work is implemented throughout the city of Portland. I vote aye.
Udaly,
Well, obviously, I'm looking forward to working closely with Civic Life, PSU, and Real Choice Initiative on this study. I love that this is a partnership across community, academia, and government, and know that we'll end up with a better outcome because of this collaboration. This study is one important step forward to helping us get a more complete picture of who is here in our city, what their needs and priorities are, and how the city can best serve people of all abilities. This is especially important in the context of civic engagement. So thank you again to our presenters, Joanne, Nico, Layla, for being here today. I'm looking forward to our work together. I vote aye.
Fish,
Thank you very much. Aye.
Wheeler.
Great presentation. I look forward to seeing the results. Joanne, thank you for all your hard work on this. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Congratulations.
Thanks so much.
Next item, Carla, can we go back to the vote, please, on 916?
Hardesty,
Aye.
Udaly,
Aye.
Fish.
Aye.
Wheeler.
I want to thank Commissioner Udaly, the Transportation Bureau, for their diligent and very quick work, particularly over a weekend, particularly given that they had to work all night. I want to thank the crews that were out there working to shore up North Going Street down to Swan Island. I want to thank our legal staff and risk management for their diligence on this as well. And I want to thank them in particular for hearing the words of the council today about both our sense of urgency and our sense of where the responsibility ultimately lies for this. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. We will next go back to our
I'm certain.
time certain item, which is 914, please.
Appoint Maria Gabrielle Sipin, Megan Horst, Michael David Edenhill, Shanice Brittany Clark, and Robin Wang to the Portland Clean Energy Community Benefits Fund Committee for terms to expire September 25, 2023.
Colleagues, this is an important waypoint in the Portland Clean Energy Fund process today. Collectively, as a city council, we're going to announce the first 5 members of the Portland Clean Energy Community Benefits Fund, otherwise known as the PCEF Committee. Before we meet the first 5, I want to thank all of those who supported and voted for the Portland Clean Energy Community Benefits Fund's initiative. There are many of the coalition members here in the council chamber today. Thank you for being here. It's good to see all of you. Happy to support green today as a small token of my appreciation. I don't typically wear green. It clashes, but today I wore a green tie in honor of you and in honor of the hard work that you did. So thank you for that. The initiative, part of the city's continuing commitment to be a climate leader nationally and globally, shows that Portlanders will come together to make our city both a greener place as well as making sure that we also have a more diverse workforce. November 2018 showed us that Portlanders can support, lead, and vote for climate justice. We can both build our communities and address our climate without sacrificing one ideal for the other. I'm proud that we take yet another step to implement this important initiative today. Sam Barrasso from the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability is here to help introduce our first 5 appointments. And thank you, Sam, the PCEF team, and the Office of Community and Civic Life for working together on such an important recruitment process. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Mayor Wheeler, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Sam Barrasso, and I'm incredibly fortunate to be the Program Manager for the Portland Clean Energy Fund. Before we get started today, I want to go ahead and bring up the first 3 folks that we're going to be chatting with, just to make sure that folks get familiar with these faces. But I want to go ahead and bring up Maria Sipin, Megan Horst, and Michael Eden Hill. And I'm going to pull up one more chair.
So is he going to see? I'm going to call him up. Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners.
So I and the PCF team are excited to be here today as this marks an important next step in the implementation of the voters' vision. 10 months since the voters passed the Portland Clean Energy Initiative, the first of its kind nationally, we're here to take this huge step. But before I do that, I want to acknowledge that in that time, we've also recruited a phenomenal startup team at the city to make this happen. And you'll see some of those folks in front of you in the months to come. But that's not why we're here today. A key part of the vision that was supported by voters last November is the PCEF Committee. The PCEF Committee is central to assuring that the Portland Clean Energy Fund is accountable to the voters' vision. And before we get into what some of that vision is, I want to talk you through some of the recruitment process, because this was probably one of the most, I would say it was probably one of the best recruitment processes I certainly was involved in. So the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability worked in close collaboration with the Office of, we have a presentation I'd love to queue up. We got it there. So one thing I'll say, I've been in this role for 3 months. So this is the first time in front of you all, and I'm happy to be in front of you all, but I will know next time to sit over that way. And
need to switch?
What was that?
Do you need to switch
Maybe that might be
seats?
helpful. Let's do it.
We'll wait.
And Sam, you can just slide that microphone wherever's convenient for you.
Great.
This is your first presentation.
This is.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's an important waypoint, absolutely.
Great. I appreciate it. Okay, so what I want to start with is just give you an overview of how we brought forth this phenomenal committee and got to this phenomenal bunch of folks in front of you all. We worked in close collaboration with the Office of Community and Civic Life, specifically Ashley Jaden, who I want to give a huge thank you to in supporting us through this process, in running an incredibly successful recruitment. We recruited over 100 applicants for the Portland Clean Energy Fund initiative. I was happy that Mayor, you, Commissioner Hardesty, and several others on the commission put a wide reach out to your networks to make sure folks applied, and that was really evident. What was also evident in the recruitment is that the panel of 100 folks we have is incredibly diverse and represents the wide swaths of the city, bringing a phenomenal representation of skill sets to the table. In order to get from that 100 individuals that applied to be on the committee, we worked with a selection advisory committee composed of 3 folks, both community members as well as city employees, in order to help narrow that list. And we used this diagram you have in front of you to help narrow that list. And you don't need to really focus too much on it, but the broad gist is that we wanted to make sure that we stuck and honored the language within the initiative, and the key points is any individual that would serve on the committee has to have demonstrated commitment towards the climate action plan, as well as demonstrated commitment towards empowering communities of color, low-income folks with disabilities, and those historically underemployed. And then there's a range of specific skill sets that were sought after and needed to be sort of brought together within the final panel or final committee. Now, we used this to get to a list of about a top 18 list, and we were able to work with your phenomenal staff in helping bring forward the great candidates you have in front of us today. And so I don't need to go too far into those details, but I want to speak to a little bit of what this committee is going to be charged and tasked to do with over the next 6 months, as well as the next 4 years of their term. So the role of the grant committee, they're going to be adopting methodologies to measure, track, and report to various stakeholders the effectiveness of the program in implementing its goals. They're going to be adopting a workforce and contractor equity plan. They're going to be making recommendations to you all, the City Council, on changes to the law that are necessary to ensure its effectiveness of the initiative in achieving its stated goals. They're going to develop grant criteria. They're going to review proposals and ensure accountability. And lastly, they're going to send the funding recommendations to the Portland City Council for approval. So this body is an incredibly important group of folks. This is the inaugural 5, and this body will be tasked in time with bringing and nominating the next 4 in order to make forth the full body of 9 that will ultimately be doing this work. And before I introduce them, I'm going to actually jump a little bit to the process, and then I will go back and introduce them so you guys have a sense for what's to play out in terms of the program implementation. We're here as with one of the initial and major important steps in terms of bringing forth our committee, and this is a key step to they're going to function as our board, designing the program. But over the next several months, we're going to be doing a whole host of public engagement and input workshops and capacity building so we get folks ready to apply for the funds. What you'll see is in summer of 2020, we'll be going out with our first round of grant funding with roughly $7 million. And subsequent to that, you'll see additional rounds of funding coming out as the fund populates. And so with that, I want to go ahead and introduce our folks you have in front of you. So first, I want to start with, to my left here, Ms. Maria Sippen. Ms. Sippen is a transportation planner and community health advocate whose work emphasizes the importance of investing in bicycle, pedestrian, and transit infrastructure and addressing displacement, safety, and accessibility for communities of color. She has experience working with people experiencing homelessness and LGBT youth in healthcare settings and continues to push for mobility justice and participatory budgeting through her grassroots nonprofit involvement. I'm incredibly excited to have Maria here and as part of this inaugural committee. To Maria's left is Megan Horst. Megan is Dr. I need to make sure I do that right. Dr. Horst is an assistant professor at the School of Urban Studies and Planning at Portland State. She brings substantial urban agriculture and local food systems expertise that is recognized both locally and nationally. And Ms. Horst also brings a strong equity lens and experience in food justice work. To my right, I have Michael David Eden Hill. Mr. Hill is a journeyman electrician who, in addition to experience in wind power design and deployment, also brings experience in construction management on one of the largest solar PV systems in the US. Mr. Eden has a solid understanding of the informal support ecosystems that are necessary to support folks through the paths of pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship programs. So I want to start with those folks, and I'm trying to think about how to do this, and I'm learning about how I need to do this next time, but what I'm going to go ahead and do is pull a couple more chairs up and actually have our next two folks, Shanice as well as Robin, come up. So that's what I think we're going to do.
Good afternoon.
All right, over there, right beside to the right of Megan, we also have Shanice Brittany Clark. Shanice is the Director of Community Engagement at Portland Public Schools, and Shanice brings a deep community engagement experience to the committee, having worked directly with 75 to 100 community organizations annually that serve Portland's diverse communities. In addition, Ms. Clark is a national delegate on the Climate Justice Alliance and is also a proud member of the Sunrise Movement, supporting their 4-year plan to make climate action an urgent priority in every corner. And last but not least, we have Robin Wang to the right of Shanice. Mr. Wang is a business, nonprofit, and community leader who's passionate about deploying capital and harnessing business to the benefit of the greater good. As a former owner of a sustainable lifestyle business, Mr. Wang brings a wealth of experience in both sustainability and business operations. Mr. Wang is the executive director of a local community development financial institution that supports underbanked entrepreneurs and serves on Prosper Portland's Council for Economic and Racial Equity. So this is an exciting group. If what I just read didn't excite you all, it's
impressive.
Yeah. So with that, I want to turn it back over to you, Mayor, and the council for
Commissioner Hursty.
I just want to applaud the current members of the Oversight Committee for PSEF. If all committees the city put together look like this committee, we would not be so stressed out about the equity work that we have ahead of us, right? This was intentional, and that's why it looks the way it looks. And I am so excited about the work that you have ahead of you and how we can support you in that work. But I just had to comment on, if every committee looked like this, we'd be head and shoulders ahead of where we are today. So thank you for stepping up and being willing to do this hard work, because it's going to be hard. I don't know if he told you, but it's going to be a little hard.
Several phone calls.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Very good. Well, I want to, first of all, say this was an embarrassment of riches when it came to the depth of experience that people had who wanted to serve. And first of all, to those of you who have been selected for this important position, this is one of the most impressive panels I think we have impaneled in the time that I've been here. Just in terms of the breadth of experience, the depth of experience, the perspectives, the lived experience that people bring to the table I believe the council will be extremely well-served by this. And I also just want to reiterate, this didn't come from the city of Portland. This came from the community. And so what I have pledged since the day that this was voted on by the public and it passed overwhelmingly, that my role would be to make sure that we implement this as well as we possibly can, along with all of my colleagues here on the city council, because I think it suffices to say, not to put pressure on you, but the whole country really is watching. And we know for a fact that there's a number of large cities looking to this model as a potential strategy for inclusive transition, just transition to clean energy. And so it's really important that we make a full faith effort to do absolutely the best that we possibly can. And in order to do that, it requires top-notch people being willing to step forward and serve. And you all have, you all did, you all have really long resumes, you're all very busy people. And I just feel really lucky to sit here right now in front of such an esteemed group of people. So my hat's off to you. But we also, I want to make a pledge on, one moment, Commissioner Fish, on behalf of all of us, I also don't want you to feel that you are being cast adrift when things do get difficult, because they will get difficult, and you should rely on us. And if there's ways that we can be helpful to your efforts, I'm going to make a public pledge right here and now that we will provide whatever time, talent, energy, resource you need in order to be successful in your role. So thank you. Commissioner Fish.
So I want to just add a couple of things. I've been on the council for over 10 years, and so during that time, I've had a chance to nominate or appoint lots of people to oversight bodies that perform unique and essential functions of the city. What I want to call out in this process is that we did things a little differently. Even though each member of the council retained the authority to make an appointment, we agreed that we wanted to find a good mix and a balance of skills and backgrounds, geography, life experiences, other things. And so we undertook a different process where there was some screening and ranking, and then a collaborative process among the council of trying to put together the first 5, the group of 5, that then selects the next 4, that is broadly representative of our community and has different and complementary skill sets. I think in some ways, the way we've done this could be a model for how we select other committees, because the default is each of us appointing someone and then finding out that it is either woefully underrepresentative of the community or overrepresentative of a certain skill set or what have you. Here, we've tried something different, and I think it's worked. You are charged with an incredibly important role of oversight and accountability over what is going to be a substantial amount of money. I think the last number Commissioner Hardesty shared with me was something in the mid-40s to the high 50s.
37 to 42, I think is what.
37 to 42, so we're talking a lot of money, millions of dollars. And you will not only be charged with being the community's eyes and ears on oversight and accountability, but you will also be charged with making sure that decisions are made free of conflicts of interest. That the decisions are made on the merits in a transparent way, with everyone given a fair shake, but not with conflicts of interest that are buried or somehow disguised. And then you'll make recommendations to the council that has the ultimate authority to make the decision. So I am very encouraged by how far we've come so far. Mr. Eden Hill, I want to thank you for being my nominee.
Thank you very much.
And just delighted. And I don't remember the last time, echoing what my colleagues have said, when I've read bios that were so impressive across the board. And I think you are going to bring a richness of your own life experience, your professional work, your community service, your values to this. And I think if this is the first 5 and we're then looking to you to fill out the committee with the next 4, I think we're in good hands. So thank you very much for stepping up and taking on this assignment.
Thank you. Sam, and I understand you have another panel, is that correct?
Yes, yes. So I think at that point, I'd say thank you all, and just give a big round of applause for all the phenomenal work you all will be doing.
Sam, before
Commissioner
you bring,
Hardesty.
thank you, Mayor. Sam, before you bring the next panel up, I just want to applaud the fact that you've only been here 3 months, and we gave you an unreasonable deadline, and you have not missed a beat. I just want you to know how much I cherish the work that you've done to get us on this path, and you have been just totally focused on making that happen. It is unusual for someone who's never worked at the city of Portland to be able to come in and galvanize people in the way that you have. So I just want you to know how much I greatly appreciate the work you've done to get us here.
Thank you. You will meet the staff soon enough, but it's an amazing staff. Okay. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead. We'll release you all, and we'll invite a few speakers up to speak to this. I want to start off with inviting Paul Lumley from NEA, Nate McCoy from National Association of Minority Contractors of Oregon, as well as Wooly Myers from the building. Well, we'll start with those two first. So we'll start with Paul Lumley and Nate McCoy.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be here again and good to see you all. My name is Paul Lumley. I'm a citizen of the Yakima Nation and Executive Director of the Native American Youth and Family Center. And I am so pleased to be here after the great citizens of this city voted overwhelmingly to support this ballot measure last year. And I'm extremely excited about the candidates you've selected so far. Those 5 candidates are wonderful. We look forward to their service on the Portland Clean Energy Community Benefits Fund Committee. And I also want to commend you in your attention to diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are very worthy goals in any context. And I think you are off to a fantastic start. It is probably not possible to reach every corner of those 3 goals with just 5 candidates, but you've done a great job so far. And the next 4 candidates that they select, we're interested in building out that continued diversity with somebody from that represents the Native American community, the Latino community, and more work with the minority contracting. We are, of course, very keen on the implementation of how this fund gets not only started but fully implemented, and your authoritative positions as elected officials, we might continue to lean on you to make sure that we don't get distracted along the way from those who might be seeking to undermine the will of the voters or to seek unnecessary waivers from paying into this important fund. So once again, thank you so much for your dedication to not only clean energy in this community, but also to the citizens of this incredible city. There are going to be incredible benefits here, not just in Portland, but even well beyond. Thank you again.
Thanks, Paul. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, you guys. Mayor, commissioners, thank you for having me. For the record, my name is Nate McCoy, Executive Director of the Oregon chapter of the National Association of Minority Contractors. I don't have anything prescripted and provocative today other than to say that it takes a village to raise a child, and in this case, it takes a village to raise a program of this magnitude. And as we've echoed today, it's taken us a while to get here, but we've gotten here, and I think the voters have spoken. And what I'm looking forward to is really getting into the details of how this program works and ensuring that this diversity, equity, inclusion is real and not just another buzzword that we've heard many times in our communities. And I think given your guys' leadership, as well as all these people in the audience, this makes me feel like we are taking this serious and intentional. And I'm looking forward to the workforce diversity that this has the opportunity to afford these disenfranchised communities. I want to echo something that was just mentioned because it is important for us to make sure that in this last 4 that we ensure we have a minority contractor representative. As good and qualified as the first 5 are, we still do lack somebody who really has knowledge in the construction arena in particular, and I know that we will get there. But I just want to thank everybody here today, including you guys, for all the hard work and trusting us as a community to kind of bring people to the table that we think can really stand this program up and make sure these funds go to the right communities. So
Thanks,
thank you.
Nate. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you. Before this panel leaves, Mayor, I just didn't want to leave Paul's statement out there unresponded to. As you know, there have been efforts to try to make some minor changes to the Portland Clean Energy Fund initiative. And we've had a community committee with PSEF members and Portland Business Alliance trying to reach some consensus. Ultimately, and I want to be clear about this, ultimately, it is the city council's responsibility to implement this measure in a way that makes sense. There are some funding mechanisms that were not anticipated when we started this, like, for example, retirement accounts. I didn't think we were going to be taxing retirement accounts, so we will be looking at some minor changes that will be coming down the pike. So I don't want people to leave today and think that no change will take place, because there will be some minor changes that will be coming back to the city council that you will have an opportunity to weigh in on. But ultimately, it is our responsibility as elected leaders to make sure that we are doing our due diligence to implement it in a way that it respects the vote of the voters, but also respects the integrity of the process. So, didn't want you to be surprised.
Well, thank you very much for your support, and I am very convinced that you will be making the correct decisions. I just don't want those requests to undermine the intent of the will of the people, is to make sure this fund actually takes place and makes it to the people who need it the most.
And you know me, so you know there's
Sure.
no chance of that happening.
Yep.
Right? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Nate.
Okay. Next up, I'm going to go ahead, if I can, Mayor Wheeler.
Yeah,
Yep,
please.
next up, I'll go ahead and call up Willie Myers from the Columbia Building Trades Council, as well as Tony DeFalco from Verde.
Good enough. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. You want me to go ahead and start?
Go ahead, Willie. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak before you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners Udaley, Hardesty, and Commissioner Fish. All commissioners, thank you. Thank you very much. We were excited to see the city undertake the process that you did in selecting the committee members and doing a broad recruitment and outreach process to solicit the interest that we received for folks that were going to serve on the committee from the full spectrum of Portland's diverse communities. The PSEF Community Coalition that campaigned successfully to bring the measure to the ballot with over 65% voter approval has also worked very hard to spread the word and promote the opportunity to serve on the grant committee. We are very thrilled with the 5 that were selected. We do see that there are some gaps still left. As you heard from the previous 2 speakers, I believe that the minority contracting community needs to have a representative that understands the pitfalls and things that minority contractors run into in the construction industry and be able to help navigate those. You know, we are excited to see what's next and how this rolls out, and I'll leave it at that.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Willie. So, you know, we really struggled with how to engage minority contractors on the committee, assuming that many of them will want to actually apply for funding. And so any help you can give us, because we want to be very clear that no one who's serving on the committee is going to be eligible to be applying for grants.
Correct.
So if there's a way to have that minority contractor voice on the committee without limiting opportunities for those same minority contractors, we're open. We want to figure out how to make that work. So if there are ideas, please bring those forward.
I believe we can thread that conflict of interest needle very carefully, and we will.
Well, we want to squeak when we walk, so we don't want it to look like there's no conflict. We want to make sure that there's
Absolutely.
no conflict, right?
Absolutely.
Thanks, Willie. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, Tony. How are you today?
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor. Good to see you all. Great to be here. My name is Tony DeFalco, and I'm the Executive Director at Verde. It's always an honor and privilege to come before you and represent Verde. And I just want to start with sharing a little bit what's going on in our communities and how important this process is for us. Communities of color, as you know, continue to be under attack from all sides. White supremacist, anti-immigrant activities, economic forces, and the climate crisis. We know that the climate crisis impacts communities of color first and worst, often due to the lack of economic strength to withstand those impacts. Our communities are resilient in the face of these onslaughts. We're working to not just survive, but to thrive. We're growing our businesses, organizing our communities, and leading public policy to deliver solutions that are grounded in our communities and work for our communities. Which is why I'm here today, joining so many of our community members. Thank you, community members, for coming out today to celebrate the Portland Clean Energy Fund as the only climate initiative to pass in any jurisdiction nationally in November of 2018. This continues Portland's leadership in taking strong action on climate, and now, in a very significant way, on equity. We fully support the slate of candidates being proposed today and acknowledge the extremely hard work of all the partners at the table in working to implement the Clean Energy Fund and to get us moving forward. Labor, minority women contracting community, environmental groups, good government groups, the progressive business community, community of color serving organizations. The list goes on and on for the broad support for this measure. We'd also like to acknowledge the hard work of Michelle Krim and her team and welcome new director Andrea Durbin and express our enthusiasm for working closely with her in the coming months. So I ask this council to express urgency today, not just in appointing this slate of candidates, because that is a critical step in our process, but in accelerating the pace of the implementation of this important program, because the climate crisis is not slowing down. Our communities continue to suffer from the impacts of economic insecurity and of the climate crisis. Therefore, as you've heard, we need to bring these climate resources into low-income and people of color communities in Portland now more than ever. So I ask you to act with urgency today and accelerate the pace of how we implement this program. Adelante. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, William. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that it? I've got two more.
All right, go for it, Sam.
All right, thank you. And I'd love to call up the final two. We're going to call up, I'm going to pull their names up. I'd like to call up Pastor Edie Monde from the NAACP, as well as Lena Westland from the Sunrise Movement.
Good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Hello. Would you like to begin?
I'd like you to begin.
All right. Well, thank you, Commissioners Hardesty, Daly, Fish, and Mayor Ted Wheeler for this opportunity to testify. My name is Lena Westland. I'm 16 years old and a junior at St. Mary's Academy. Since March, I've been an activist with Sunrise PDX, a local hub of broad, grassroots, youth-led climate justice movement. Our movement's mission is to mobilize youth across the country to make the Green New Deal a reality. I am joined by several of my hub members here today, and I'm delivering a single testimony for all of us. We're here to show our active support for the Portland Clean Energy Fund and for the 5 people being appointed to PSF Grants Committee, including Shanice Clark, a fellow Sunrise PDX member. I joined Sunrise because it got to the point where I could no longer overlook the obvious signs of climate change I was seeing around me every day. In the past, I made up excuses, such as I'm too young, or I don't have enough experience or knowledge, but it was because I was scared that there was nothing I could do to prevent our planet from a climate catastrophe. Sunrise was a breath of relief for me, because I had found a movement of young people who felt exactly as I did and were committed to doing something about it. The Portland Clean Energy Fund is incredibly important and symbolic to Sunrise because it is a Green New Deal for Portland. PSF was created and led by frontline communities and reflects a robust mechanism for achieving a just transition on a local level. In many ways, we see PSF as a blueprint for the Green New Deal, for which we are passionately organizing. For this reason, it is vitally important to us that PSEF succeed and that it match the intent of the frontline-led organizations that came together to create it. It is our understanding that the 5 committee candidates being appointed today reflect the diversity, integrity, and expertise required to make PSEF a success. We thank you for conducting the thorough and broad outreach process that has led to these committee member selections. Mayor and Commissioners, it is now your job to protect PSEF from billion-dollar corporations who will take any opportunity to weaken this groundbreaking policy. We are entrusting you to continue following the leadership of the Community Coalition that championed PSEF and to defend the program from any attempt to be weakened. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Good afternoon. It's good to see you, Mr. Mayor, and to all the commissioners.
How come everybody calls him Mr. Mayor and just calls us commissioners?
Well, I guess because he's the mayor and you all are commissioners.
Mr. Mayor, he's just the mayor.
Well, that's not gonna help your cause.
How you doing, Ted? How you doing?
Always living the dream. Good to see you. Thank you for being here.
It's always good to see you as well. I wasn't prepared to speak, but I'm happy to be able to do that as the first petitioner for this initiative. I'm grateful for the architect of this initiative being a past president of the NAACP. I'm very proud of her work, and I'm glad that she garnered the strength to see it through and then to find me and push me into the deep end of the pool. That's okay. Living the life that I've lived, my lived experience has been the partnership with climate injustice. And until I began my work at the NAACP, I didn't understand exactly what that meant. But as I'm becoming more familiar with its work and the critical nature of it, I am very, very much in partnership with doing all that I can and giving all the energy that I can to make it happen in a better way for redlined and marginalized communities. It is imperative that we had to go through the processes that we have gone through, and I applaud your efforts. I think that they were wise, and I believe that the choices are just, and I'm waiting for the hard work now to begin. I wish all the people that were represented here today had been here at the beginning when all the work and going out into the streets, and thank God for the coalition that stood there in the streets and stood on the corners and fought City Hall and were thrown out of the PBA. I mean, it was a wild ride, but we got there, and we're here today. I want you to know that I'm going to be carefully watching and being involved as we have created a special committee and a whole cutout in the NAACP to be involved in this work moving forward. It is my intention to be a wise watchman on the wall that our community, especially not just the people of color, but African American people, Black people, who are not included often in that POC pot, are represented. So in my closing to you today, I'm proud to be a part of this initiative as the first petitioner. I'm proud of its architect being the past president of the NAACP, and I'm proud of the work that we're going to do moving forward, and I'm looking forward to your careful guidance. Thank you.
Thanks, Edie. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mayor, I move the report.
A second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Fish, a second from Commissioner Hardesty. Any further discussion? Carla, please call the roll.
Hardesty?
If I was any giddier, I would not be able to stay in my seat. It's amazing when an idea is being percolated in the brain that actually ends up then on paper, that then ends up garnering widespread community support, then ends up becoming public policy, then ends up becoming a standard that people around the world are watching and wanting to duplicate in their own communities. We've done excellent work to get to this point, but I don't want anybody to be under the illusion that the hard work isn't what the work that's ahead of us. because there will be forces trying to divide us. There'll be brand-new people who will all of a sudden be experts in clean energy and climate mitigation. I've had lots of conversations with those brand-new people myself already, but I hope that the committee and the leadership will stay focused on what the vision was of this measure, which was and is to ensure that those left out of the economic engine, those who have not benefited from the riches that are taking place in this city, are front and center, and they are benefiting. And they're not just benefiting with living wage employment opportunities, but they have the ability to build companies and organizations that will take us into the climate future we envision. And so these are lofty goals that we have set for this program. And I have every confidence that we've got the right people in the right positions at the right time to make this happen. I wholeheartedly vote aye.
Udaly?
Phew, I just finished my remarks.
I was trying to, give you time.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that. Well, this is an exciting moment. Our community owes a deep debt of gratitude to the incredible coalition of groups and individuals that came together to make this moment possible. Since Sam is new here and doesn't know the rule against applause, and I am the current Madam President of the council, I'm going to roll with it and waive the rules. I want everyone to give yourselves a huge round of applause.
Thank you, Council President, and that is without objection from the presiding officer.
Thank you. I was going to say, every once in a while, you have to ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Break the rules, ask for permission later. The approval.
While other communities struggle to identify resources to do the work necessary for a just transition to a carbon-free future, Portland will be taking the next step, funding and implementing the work. Ooh, I'm getting chills. I nominated Robin Yang to serve on the committee because he has directly relevant experience and a lifelong commitment to social and environmental justice. To accomplish the goals set out in the measure passed by over 200,000 Portlanders, making up over 65% of the people who voted in the November 2019 election, businesses owned by people of color and women will need assistance to scale up to meet the demand of clean energy services. Maybe that'll help us in our procurement challenges down the line as well.
Don't make us go back there.
Robin is an expert at helping small businesses owned by women and people of color succeed. I'm proud to nominate him and grateful for his willingness to serve on the committee. I first heard about this campaign while I was campaigning for City Council in 2016. I was happy to lend my support and resources in the early days before the measure qualified for the ballot. I enthusiastically supported and endorsed the campaign in 2018. Some of my favorite moments were sitting with some of you in Judge Swade's chambers, trying to suppress laughter and high fives as we listened to the weak arguments from the opposition and the very patient responses of the judge. We prevailed, of course. I also have a confession. My very first experience of canvassing that involved actually knocking and talking on doors was in East Portland for PSUF. I didn't even do that for myself. I'm afraid I'm going to have to change that rule, but yes. And it was amazing. It was really an amazing experience. Not everyone hates people that knock, strangers that knock on their door. Important life lesson. And then finally, of course, election night was pretty fantastic between Commissioner Hardesty's win and the measure passing. I'm thrilled that we're taking this step today. I can't wait to get the first round of funding out the door next year. Thanks again to everyone who participated in making this historic milestone possible. Thank you, Sam, for your leadership. And now, thank you to the charter members of the committee for your willingness to serve and help us forge unknown territory. I really want everyone to pause. Every once in a while at council, we realize we're making decisions that will impact the city for decades. 100 years from now, when people forget that any of us ever existed, hopefully we don't go down in infamy, but they will be, for better or for worse, impacted by the decisions we make today. So your efforts are going to help not only change the future of our city, but the world. I vote aye.
Fish?
A tough act to follow. Thank you to all of the nominees for your willingness to serve. Thank you to Michael Eden Hill, my nominee, for taking on this assignment. We're very excited about watching this thing unfold, creating the infrastructure for what is going to be a very challenging process, but a very dynamic one between the committee and the council. We appoint people all the time. I'm hard pressed to remember a time we've appointed such a diverse and accomplished group of people in one council hearing. Congratulations. Thank you for your willingness to serve, and we look forward to serving with you. Aye.
Wheeler?
Well, this is a very exciting day, and again, I want to thank the community. Many individuals who helped support this from the very beginning are here in this chamber today. I want to thank you for your hard work, your passion, your commitment to this effort. Thank you for bringing it to this point here today. I'm honored to nominate Maria Sippen to the inaugural committee. I believe that she demonstrated a very clear commitment to working with people to advance sustainable priorities for people in this community, but with a real focus on populations that have historically been left out of important decisions. And she understands that the priorities that we set around the environment, that we set around workforce development, that we set around procurement, they have to be centered on communities of color and others who have been historically excluded from the benefits of both investment and planning. She is a professional transportation planner. She's a public health professional. She's a community health advocate, and I believe she'll bring both a level of experience as well as a perspective that's critically important to the success of this committee. I can't think of anybody better for this role, and I can't think of any time when we've had 5 people appointed at the same time with such strength towards the purpose for which we're all organized here today. I want to make a couple of personal commitments to you here and now. Number one, I want you to know that I personally will remain highly committed to this effort to make sure that it is the most successful effort it can possibly be. That is a personal commitment. Number two, I want you to know that I'm making that commitment on behalf of every member of my administration. Up to this point, Sam Diaz has been my point on this. He'll continue to be. We will continue to make it front and center. We will continue to stay engaged with the committee to make sure that if there are any needs from that committee in order to be successful, we will fulfill those needs. The Bureau of Planning Sustainability, of which I'm the commissioner in charge under the leadership of Andrea Durbin, is very highly motivated to make sure that this is a successful effort. So I will make that commitment on behalf of all of us. Again, thank you for your willingness to serve, the 5 of you that are being appointed today. Sam, you did a great job for your first stint in front of City Council. We've had people who've done it for 20 years who can't get the PowerPoint to work. So you've done an exceptional job. Thank you for organizing a very, very good report today. I vote aye happily. The report's accepted. Congratulations to those of you who've now been appointed.
So would we like to commemorate this experience by having a picture with our newest committee members?
That's a great idea. Why don't we just gather right down here in front? We'll stop for a photo, and then I believe after this we have Parks and Recreation 919.
What is right?
We got something else?
Yeah, we got one more.
final item for today.
Yes, item 919, authorize the Director of Portland Parks and Recreation to execute the second amendment to the grant agreement between Portland Parks and Recreation and the Portland Parks Foundation for the Barbara Walker Crossing Project.
Commissioner Fish.
Colleagues, this is a very straightforward matter. We should be able to do this in 5 minutes. The Barbara Walker Crossing Project is an exciting public-private partnership and brings together three things Portlanders are passionate about: parks, safe streets, and new bridges. The Barbara Walker Crossing will make it easier and safer to connect popular destinations in Forest Park, Hoyt Arboretum, and Washington Park, and it represents really the hallmark of our productive relationship with the Portland Parks Foundation. Here to briefly explain the second amendment to the grant agreement is Claudio Campazano, Public Finance, Property, and Technology Manager for Parks, and our friend Randy Gregg, who is the Executive Director of the Portland Parks Foundation. Gentlemen, welcome. Claudio?
Good afternoon. I'll introduce myself again for the record. Claudio Campazano, Finance, Property, and Technology Manager for Portland Parks and Recreation. So very briefly, the amendment before you, it's the second amendment to the grant agreement. The grant agreement was the city granting resources to the Portland Parks Foundation to construct this bridge. And this amendment does several things. It memorializes an additional $100,000 that the foundation is committed to fund operations and maintenance for the bridge, as well as the work during the warranty period of the bridge. Second, it transfers ownership of the bridge to the city after substantial completion. Third, it clarifies responsibilities during that period between substantial completion and final completion during the warranty period. And finally, it officially names the bridge Barbara Walker Crossing. So that's what you have before you today. And now I'll let Randy tell you a little bit about the project overall. I'm sure that you have heard it before, but just to give you some context.
I'll be quick. I keep you from happy hour outside. So it's really nice to be here. I'm usually here asking you for something, and this time I'm giving you something. So that's a nice change of pace. This is basically a bridge connecting our beloved Wildwood Trail over that rather awful, dangerous crossing at Burnside. And when the crossing is completed next month, it'll separate 80,000 yearly users of the Wildwood Trail from the 20,000 daily drivers of West Burnside. Here it is, all 178 feet of it being assembled at Supreme Steel in Northeast Portland. It'll be cut into 3 parts and then reassembled on site beginning on October 7th, and if all goes according to plan, that the installation will be completed on October 14th. When it's done, of course, it'll look like this to drivers, but to those on the trail, it'll look like something like this. And we're going to open it on a Sunday with a Sunday morning street party on October 27th, right in the middle of Burnside, underneath the bridge. Thank you, Commissioner Udaley, for making that happen. The Portland Parks Foundation made the bridge happen over the course of about 4 years, but as with all of our efforts, we're really only the vessel for other people's generosity, and that really begins with these 2 characters. Ed Carpenter, who conceived of the bridge. Ed's a lifelong runner of the bridge for 40 years. He came up with a design, lobbied dozens of groups to gain political support, and through many tests of will and budget, he kept his vision for a bridge that's really an integral, beautiful expression of the trail. On the right, Charlie Swindells raised a whole lot of money for this bridge. Ultimately, over 900 individual donors who gave as little as $5 and as much as $150,000. Foundations like Murdoch and OCF kicked in as well. And then there's the firms for a total of 2.17 million in individual donors and foundations, including 600 who gave $184,000 during a 33-day crowdfunding campaign. So it's really a people's bridge. I also want to call out the firms who on the design and construction team, because together, and this is just what they counted, I can tell you that they've put in way more than this, $385,000 in pro bono services, which is really substantial. Public funding, of course, comes from many different pots. Total is $1.5 million, most of it from SDCs. And ultimately, the bridge, oops, I forgot to change the number. It's $4.085 million, and it's a 37% public, 63% privately funded bridge. So really, it's Portland's first crowd-funded bridge. Just a quick word about Barbara Walker. Most of you, I think, know who she is, but she's really the mother of the trail system in the city. She began as a NIMBY housewife and transitioned to an incredible activist who really believed that the system is made from the connections, and this bridge is a beautiful expression of that. So just to remind you, the grand opening is 8:30 to noon on Sunday, October 27th. We're going to have Siletz and Grand Ronde tribes participating. We're going to have all-you-can-eat pancakes. Body Vox and the great theatrical designer Michael Curry are going to choreograph an event. It should be really, really fun. And so I hope to see you all there.
Randy, thank you very much, and congratulations to the foundation for bringing this home.
Yeah, you bet.
That concludes our presentation, Mayor.
Very good. Looks excellent. Any further discussion? Any public testimony, Carla?
No one signed up.
Would you like a motion? This is actually an ordinance, so we'll just call the roll.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Udaly.
Thanks for the presentation. Can't wait for the pancakes. Better to eat a pancake than to become a pancake. Sorry, I had to.
She's here all night, folks, all night. Fortunately, the rest of us aren't.
Long day.
I vote aye.
Fish.
Thank you both. Congratulations again. Vote aye.
Okay, awesome.
Wheeler?
Thank you.
Wheeler.
I'm disappointed I will not be here for the pancake breakfast.
bummer.
And so I'm going to say right now in front of you what I would have said there. I have chased across this road, I don't know how many times to get from one side to the other. And when I had a small child, it was particularly frightening. And I am really glad that this project not only came to fruition, but it's done so with style, and it's done so as a partnership with the community. And I think it just, architecturally, I think it's stunning. I think it's fantastic. So this to me just looks like a solid win for the community. I'm proud to vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Thank you very much for your hard work. And guess what? We are adjourned.